Hey scientists, welcome back to Caleb and Luke's Mega Science Show. I'm Scientist Caleb, and this is my brother, Lab Assistant Luke. Now today, we have got something super cool to show to you. We're going to be talking about alkali metals. Now what alkali metals are is if you look at the periodic table of elements, in the first column, which my shirt actually has on it, in the first column there are 7 elements. Now the first one is hydrogen. We're not going to talk about that right now. That's because that's a gas. But the next ones are all metals. And we have lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, and francium. So, what makes an alkali metal? Well, alkali metals are extremely soluble. And what that means is they just dissolve very easily. To show you what soluble is, we actually have something you can try at home. We're going to take a little bit of sugar. How we pour the sugar in, dude? Right, so we're going to take the sugar and we're going to put it into some hot water. And because it's hot, the water's going to break down the sugar. And then the sugar is going to become part of the water. It's going to dissolve in the water. So, that's what soluble is. It just breaks down in liquid very easily. We'll put this over here. Here, I'm going to give you some science cheese because you are excited about today's experiment, and I love your enthusiasm. Another thing about alkali metals is they are super reactive. What does that mean? Well, when you mix them with water, they start to burn up. They just go crazy. So in nature, when you find the alkali metals, they're usually mixed with something else, such as sodium. Sodium is one of our alkali metals, and it likes to mix with chlorine to make table salt, which you can use for cooking. So since they're so reactive, out in nature, they like to combine with other things so that they're not as reactive. Another thing is they're not very dense, so what they do is if you put them in liquid, they'll float to the top. They'll just float around because they don't have much density. And the final thing we're going to talk about is they are incredibly soft. So that kind of sounds weird. Usually when you think of metal, you think of something that's very hard, but these are very soft. You could actually just cut them with a knife, kind of like with butter. So today's video is dangerous, so at home guys, do not try this, but it is okay to look up videos on YouTube of this, and it is very cool. Our first metal that we are going to work with is lithium. So Luke, before we he is just so excited today, and I'm loving it. So before we get to it, Luke, can I get a high five? Yeah, all right, so guys, we are gonna get the lithium ready right now to show you what's gonna happen. All right, guys, so what we have here is a little piece of lithium, and you've probably heard of lithium. It's actually used in batteries, but it's our first alkali metal. So like I said, they are very easy to cut. So we're gonna take our knife here, and we're gonna cut a little piece of lithium off. Just a little one. We don't want a big one because they are, like I said, very reactive. All right. So, another neat thing about the metals is if you look, when I first cut this piece of metal, it was very shiny on the inside. And that's because that's what the metal actually looks like. But once it reacts with the oxygen in the air, it starts to tarnish and it becomes very dull colored. It's no longer that shiny silver color. So I'm gonna put this back in the oil so it doesn't react anymore with the oxygen. So we'll put it in there. So there's our lithium in the container. All right, so now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take this little piece of lithium right here and drop it in the water. Let's see what happens. All right, so as you can see, it started to burn up immediately, and it bubbles, and it kind of just, like I said, it's soluble, so it dissolved into the water, and it's still bubbling. So let's just do a little test. So Like I said, these are called alkali metals, so because of that, they should make the water into more of a base and not an acid. So I have right here a pH testing solution. I'm gonna pour it in here. So if it turns blue, that means it's more of a base. If it turns yellow, that means it's more acidic. So let's test that out. We'll put 3 drops in. 1, 2, 3. And if you look right away, we can mix it in actually. It turned blue. So that means that it is actually more of a base, and that's what it's supposed to do. All right, so another neat thing about this is when it's dissolving in the water, it's actually burning up. And because it's burning up, it gives off hydrogen gas. So I'm gonna do a little thing and show you that it does give off hydrogen gas. So we're gonna put another piece in, and as you see, it's reacting with the water. So I'm gonna take my torch, and we're gonna light a little skewer on fire, get a nice little fire going. And if you hear that little pop, that was actually the hydrogen gas reacting with that fire and kind of exploding. So that shows you right there, it was in this test tube here, that when they are burning up, they give off hydrogen gas. So let's move on to our next one, and that would be sodium. Let's see what sodium does. All right guys, so in the background you might hear a buzzing noise, and that's because the neighbors of the lab are actually doing some lawn work right now. But let's get back to this. So, like I said, our next alkali metal we're gonna deal with is sodium, and this is a little bigger, and this is actually what you mix with the chlorine to make salt. So, like I said, let's test out that theory. I said alkali metals are nice and soft. Let's get a good grip on it, and let's see if we can cut it. And oh my goodness, yes it is. It's actually a lot softer than that lithium was. Now look, see how it's shiny? It's starting to tarnish just like the lithium did, but this time it's tarnishing a lot faster. So I'm gonna put it back in the oil. Right back. All right, so let's do a little test with this guy. So we got a nice piece here. So let's just break it up, break it in half. Let's see what happens when we drop it in some water. So like I said, it is not very dense, so it's gonna float. Let's test it out. And look at that. It immediately, and you can see there's this smoke, and that's the hydrogen gas, but it's bubbling up and it's starting to dissolve in the water. Another really neat thing that you guys are gonna notice about these alkali metals is that the farther you go down the table, the more reactive they become and the more violent the reactions become. So because of that, we can only do the first 3 alkali metals. The bottom 3 are very, very dangerous to work with, and actually the last one is radioactive, so I can't even get my hands on it. But they are still very cool, awesome experiments, so we're gonna let that sizzle out. Let's see what's gonna do. All right, so while it's doing it, let's test that again. We're gonna put 3 more drops in, and remember, if it turns blue, it means that it's alkaline. 1, 2, 3. So, as you can see, we are dealing, let me show it to lab assistant Luke. Look, we got alkali solution, so it's not very acidic, it's more of a base. All right, so let's once again, we're gonna try out another test tube. Let's see what happens when we put it in here. Let's let it burn up, and we're gonna see what happens when we put in the flame. We'll introduce a flame to it as it's dissolving. All right, so where's my skewer? All right, so this one's a little more gassy. All right, let's see. Oh, the flame went out. And just like that. All right, so it popped, it got bigger. I guess there was a little bit of flame on there. And now because we introduced a flame, it's actually starting to catch the, I know, that was really cool, wasn't it? It's starting to explode a little bit. That was pretty cool. Wow. All right, guys, so the last one that we're gonna do today, the last one that we are gonna do is potassium, just like in a banana. All right, guys, so our final element is our potassium. I need a little bit of water for this one. So, let's talk about this. Like I said, the farther down the table you go, the more reactive they get. So, since this is our third one, I think that we can guess that this is going to be the most reactive one in the water. Let's just test it out though. So first, actually, let's give it a little cut. We're going to cut into it, and remember, like I said, they're very, very soft. And yes, they are. This one is literally like cutting a piece of butter. And as you can see, it's not shiny very long. It actually reacts with the oxygen in the air so fast that it tarnishes. So we'll put that back in the oil to preserve it. All right, so now we have our piece. So for that test tube one, we're actually just gonna take a very, very, very tiny piece because it's pretty dangerous. Okay, so let's see what happens when we put a piece of potassium into water. Let's see, are you ready, Lab Assistant Luke? This is gonna be the coolest one, I think. Ready? And look at that. It literally just explodes because it's so reactive. Okay. And it's still burning. So what happens is, like you've seen before with the other ones, there's that gas that comes out. So the potassium gets so hot with the water that it actually burns the hydrogen gas before it can even escape. So it is the most reactive one by far out of this group. And we're gonna put this over here in a safe place. And now we are gonna try this. Let's see what happens. Let's see. Actually, guys, I made a mistake, and you know what? Sometimes that happens. I know, man, it happens though, right? Mistakes happen. That's part of science. That's part of learning that mistakes are going to happen. We didn't test to see if it was alkaline. So let's test that out, Lab Assistant Luke. Let's see. Is it going to be an acid or a base? So if it turns... I'm excited to find it out too. If it turns yellow, it's an acid. If it turns blue, it is a base. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. And look at that. It is blue. And that means that, once again, it's a base. All right, so I'm gonna take this over here, a nice safe distance away. Okay. Now, this is the part that's gonna be possibly dangerous. So, let's take this. All right, let's see. Can we get it enough time? It is incredible. All right, so just like I said, so it was very windy, as you just saw, so the flame kept going out. But like I said, with the potassium, what happens is it gets so hot that it actually burns up that gas, that hydrogen gas, before it has a chance to be ignited. So that's why right there you didn't see it explode like it did with the other two. But yes, it does still release hydrogen gas, and it still burned it up. I mean, if you saw it burned up, so that tells you that there's gas in there. So guys, that was the first 3 alkali metals. So I know I had a lot of fun with this. I thought it was pretty cool. Lab Assistant Luke, did you have a fun time with this experiment? Need help? Oh, here, try it again. It's not working.
Yes.
Thank you. Good job. All right, I think that deserves another piece of science cheese for you. All right, so Luke and I both had fun. I thought that it was pretty cool learning about the alkali metals and how reactive they are, and the reason that they are so reactive. Well, the reason is that they are made up of these little shells, and on the outermost shell they have 1 electron. And what happens is they can either give that electron away or they can accept more electrons, and it takes a lot less energy to give away the one electron than it does to take more electrons on. So what they do is they give away that electron, and that causes them to be super reactive. Luke, thank you for joining me. Thank you for helping out today. Thank you for being my partner, Mr. Lab Assistant Luke. And guys at home, scientists, thank you so much for watching. I hope you really enjoyed the video, and we will see you next week for some more awesome science. He left me hanging. All right, bye guys.